All right, welcome back, dear students. This is the second part of the trade block, part two. In part one of video, we got a clear understanding of what a trade block is and the reasons why member countries would want to be a part of a trade block and what are the objectives for setting it up, and most importantly, the different types of trade blocks that exist: the preferential trade agreement, the free trade agreement, the customs union, the common market, the economic union, and finally the political integration of the political union that we have. So different types of trade blocks that are existent in the world, and member countries can decide what they would want to do. And we looked into the positive and the negative aspects of trade blocks. So it's got positives by being a part of a trade block. You get that support from all the member countries that are geographically located to each other. The drawback is, yes, it restricts your scope of growing and being a very large global player in international business because it limits your exposure, it limits your scope for doing business with other countries of the world. Right. So with that part, I'm going to step into part two. Part two will talk to you about the various trading blocks that are very strongly operating within the world within the world in the international business sphere. A very strong uh, trading bloc is NAFTA. NAFTA stands for North American Free Trade Agreement. It's an agreement that is signed between three countries in the North American continent. You have Canada, you have Mexico, and you have United States, and with the US being the major player. So the three countries decided that they would want to establish themselves as a trade bloc because of their geographic proximity and because of a lot of resources available in these countries, and mutually they could trade and mutually they could make benefit by free movement of factors of production and resources as such. So they came into effect on the 1st of January 1994. It's considered to be a very powerful trade bloc because of the presence of the United Nations, presence of the United States, which controls a large part of the trade in the world, right? And it has two supplementary bodies. You have the North American Agreement on Environmental Cooperation, where member countries also execute their social responsibility of how to operate and ensure that they are quite responsible in their commitment of doing business, and also responsible in trying to safeguard an environment and ensure that pollution levels and other degrading uh, degrading activities that endanger the environment are kept under control, right? So that's where that particular body specifically looks into it. And you have the North American Agreement on Labor Cooperation, which talks about formulates policies for free movement of labor, protection of labor, exploitation of labor, and so on. So altogether, they control about 767 billion US dollars is the net worth of the activities that they have as part of the trade bloc. Uh, a very big trade bloc, very often known as a cartel, is the OPEC, Organization for the Petrol Exporting Countries, established in the year 1960. It's an oil cartel whose mission is to coordinate the policies of all the oil producing countries in the world. It's headquartered in Vienna, Austria. And you have all these countries are countries that have oil wells and refineries, and oil happens to be their large resource, and they are the largest exporters of oil to all the countries of the world which do not have oil wells of themselves. And India largely depends on OPEC countries. And so they have a common market, and they have a common set of policy as well. And they decide the rate at which crude oil needs to be sold to the external world as such. So and this cartel controls the trade to a very large extent because crude oil is a very big resource for industry, for manufacturing, and for the entire economy as such, right? So OPEC is the second trade bloc we have. ASEAN is Association of Southeast Asian Nations, established in the year 1967. It is a political and economic organization of 10 countries in Southeast Asia. It has Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. All of these countries which are in the rim of the uh, Southeast Asia, they are all members of this particular trade bloc, and they have common economic policies. And these are some of the aims that they have to promote trade between these countries in the Southeast Asian region, because most of these are developing countries, and by mutually cooperating and mutually working together is when these countries can regionally grow. That's pretty much the point. And then along with the economic benefits that these member countries are looking into, they try to maintain a lot of peace and harmony between these countries together, and they also have a lot of regional, they also have a lot of cultural commonality between them, so that also makes them regionally being very united. And ASEAN has a very big threat from China, because China very often tries to maneuver and tries to establish its supremacy in the Black China Sea area, which often hampers the interests of these smaller nations as such. So that's when all of these nations coming together will be able to collectively bargain and collectively stand against the might of China, or stand against the might of Korea or any other countries that are not a part of the ASEAN group. Next, we have SARC. India is a signatory of SARC, and SARC stands for South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, headquartered in Kathmandu, was established on 8th December 1985. And the policies are to promote economic welfare, collective reliance among all the member countries in Southeast Asia, accelerate a lot of socio-cultural region. That's why you have the SARC summits, and there are the SARC regional and cultural exchanges that takes place, and it's a body that fosters a lot of cordial relationships to foster trade, business, culture, and ensure a lot of regional cooperation, and also ensure a lot of regional stability in the region. You have Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka as such. And we've seen that significantly last week. Prime Minister Narendra Modi called for the SARC meeting, called for an emergency meeting of the SARC countries virtually. So he virtually connected with all the heads of all these countries to see how to defend their own countries, and how to come together to solve, to overcome this global pandemic of the coronavirus, and how they can do their best to maintain that it does not affect trade, business, and normal life in these regions. So that's a good example, the latest one that we have, where a trade bloc comes together to sort out a common issue which bothers all these member countries. The biggest body trade bloc we have is the European Union. Came into existence on 1st of January 1958, headquartered in Brussels in Belgium. It has 28 countries. It has members like the United Kingdom, Belgium, Finland, France, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, and Greece. All these countries in the European continent decided that they would come together and form a common economic union. That's because they're all closer in proximity. And that is where they've constituted themselves as an economic union, removed border restrictions to a large extent, and removed tariff and non-tariff barriers between them. And and to a large extent, they have done good work and good business. And it's only in the last few years that countries like Great Britain felt that being a part of the European Union did not really benefit, and it was Britain was trying to indulge more in trying to help other countries in the European Union uh, to develop and support when they weren't doing well. And that's because we are forced. When you're part of a group, we you are supposed to help somebody else in when they are in trouble. So uh, the citizens of Great Britain felt that it was against their own interest, and that is the reason why you had almost a 50% divide for the Brexit, the for and the against, and finally you see United Kingdom finally out of the European Union. Very significantly, in the year 1999, they established euro as a common currency. So a lot of business transaction takes place with that particular currency, and it offers financial aid to all the developing countries, and that's one of the reasons that affected United Kingdom, because a lot of financial funding was going from UK to many other countries like Greece and many other countries that went through a lot of economic trouble because of poor internal management, and is one of those biggest trade blocks because it controls all the big countries, all the major countries of the European Union are members of the EU. We have the Central American Common Market Customs Union, which was established in the year 15th, in the year 1960 on 15th December. These are all countries in the Panama region. So that's where you have Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. So all these are those Panaman countries, that bridges a North American continent with the South American continent. Uh, they are smaller countries, so they have established a regional understanding in the Panama region, so that they are together, and they can support each other because they're of the same size, and they're of the same level and same stages of development as such. So ensuring that you are doing business with somebody who's very much like you is the one who will understand, is the factor that brings all these countries together. So you had the CACM, and last of all we have ALADI, is a Spanish abbreviation for the Latin American Integration Association, established on 12th August 1980, and it was called LAFTA. It's called the Latin American Free Trade Area, and it's also called SAFTA because it's South American Free Trade Area. So you have these countries: Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Cuba, Panama, all the countries in the South American continent. They are members of the Latin American Integration Association, the ALADI, and that's a big trading bloc because, again, as I said, regional characteristics dominate and cultural characteristics dominate, and regionally, the resources are also very much what is similarly available, and so that's how these countries can establish a common regional understanding, and then also generate that for economic benefits if it's for a larger good for these countries. So progressively, these countries have been able to develop on a large scale and to a large extent as such. So that brings us to the end of bring us to the end of this particular topic on trade blocks, right? And so it's a very small topic, and I'm sure it has given you a lot of inputs to help you to understand, how it operates in international business, and how countries. There's no country in the world that is not part of a trade bloc. So you can understand that there is no country that is operating solo, and every country is part of a trade bloc in some form or the other. They may not be formally a part of it, but informally they have their own bilateral understandings and exchanges in terms of trade that helps them and necessitates the growth, and helps them to foster that international business. Uh, the key takeaways of a trading bloc is that, yes, member countries which are in closer proximity gain to benefit when they are members of a trade bloc, and since all the member countries are closer in proximity, buying and selling between these countries becomes a lot more easy because geographical distances are very lesser, political distances are very narrow, economic distances also are narrow because member countries in a particular region in closer proximity more or less are of the same nature, right? And socio-culturally, distances are also narrow because the people in that particular region will more or less be the same, following a common religion, having a common racial background, having a common understanding, psychological mindset, cultural backgrounds and ethos. All of that basically makes it easier for these countries to do business rather than deal with a country that has completely contrasting characteristics as such. So that's where these countries, tend to gain, and they're part of a trade bloc, right? So with that, I'm going to wind up. So I want you to watch out. I want you to listen to these two watch these two videos, and I'm going to be circulating your assessment and assignment question, which is 10 questions on your through the Google Doc onto your Google Classroom. Please go through these videos and then uh, answer those questions and then submit it to the class. I'm back again in Google Class, and I will use that for your assessment and for your marking of your attendance and such. So thank you, and have a good day. Happy learning.